It was a summer day last year when I drove alone to a tranquil, beautiful lake in the suburbs to go swimming. I'm kind of a loner who likes to go outdoors alone to exercise or fish. I had been to this lake many times before. It was nestled among some woods with few people living nearby. Whenever I got absorbed in the passing scenery out my window driving there, I always looked forward to the next few hours of solitude. This time was no exception. I drove while listening to music in the car, watching the scenery speed by outside, and started imagining how refreshing it would feel to jump into the crystal clear water. About half an hour later, I arrived at the lake and parked near a small cabin at the entrance. The cabin had just one tiny room and looked pretty old with some posters about swimming safety on the walls. I locked my car and walked through the cabin toward the lake shore. It was very quiet with only the sound of a light breeze rustling the leaves. Sunshine shimmered on the calm surface of the lake. I took a deep breath of the fresh air by the lake and felt extremely happy and relaxed. I took off my t-shirt and jumped into the water wearing just my swimming trunks. The cool, crisp lake water felt so comfortable as I swam a few laps, enjoying this rare alone time. After swimming for about 20 minutes or so, I decided to get out of the water and take a little break. I swam toward the wooden dock, pulled myself up onto it with my hands, and shook the water droplets out of my hair. Just then, I suddenly noticed a soaking wet man standing motionless at the end of the dock, staring at me. I was badly startled, and my body instantly tensed up. We stared at each other for a few seconds as my mind raced thinking I was done for. The man had a blank expression, with such cold, creepy eyes, and water dripping off his whole body, sending chills down my spine. My first instinct was to quickly turn and jump back in the water, but the instant I moved to get up, the man let out a bizarre angry yell and charged toward me like a madman. I was absolutely terrified and immediately jumped back in the water, swimming frantically toward the center of the lake. I could hear loud stomping on the wooden dock behind me as the man chased after me relentlessly like a lunatic. Just then, I felt my calves seize powerfully as my whole body was dragged under the water. I looked down in horror to see the man clutching my leg, staring straight at me through the water with a crazed look in his eyes and letting out freakish shrieking cries with bubbles spewing from his mouth. Scared out of my wits, I kicked violently trying to break free, but his grip on me was tight. We struggled underwater for several seconds until I mustered all my strength to finally shake off his hold, then I swam desperately for the shore. I scrambled onto land and sprinted toward the parking lot without looking back. I could hear the sound of splashing water behind me as the man seemed to have gotten out of the lake and was chasing after me. I pushed myself to run faster until I finally saw my car just up ahead. I reached my car out of breath, fumbled to take out my keys to open the door, jumped in and peeled out of there. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror, terrified that man was right behind my car. All the way home, my heart pounded as I replayed the incident in my mind. The man looked so violent and deranged, yet inexplicably showed up at a remote lake. It was all so bizarre and frightening. The way he clutched me underwater and refused to let go still sends shivers down my spine. I tried to convince myself that maybe he was just some crazy guy who fell in the lake, but my gut told me there was more to it. How could an ordinary man chase me that long without getting tired? And why was he alone at such an isolated lake in the first place? All these unanswered questions nagged at me and wouldn't go away. I even started wondering if he was some kind of guardian spirit of the lake who tries to drown anyone entering that area. The thought made me shudder. When I got home, I locked all the doors and windows and shut the curtains, afraid that man would follow me back. I called the police and described the man's characteristics as best I could, though my memory was hazy from being so terrified at the time. The police drove out to check the lake but found nothing amiss. They told me it was likely just a mentally ill person, but I couldn't shake the feeling there was more to it. After that, I never went swimming alone at that lake again, no matter how tranquil and beautiful it was. It was a summer day 2 months ago when I made plans with some college buddies to go swimming and picnic at a secluded mountain lake on the weekend. We were in different majors at school and didn't get to hang out much. Since it was summer break, we wanted to find a place to chill together. I had been to this remote mountain lake once before and knew it had beautiful scenery, crystal clear water, and no one else around, perfect for our kind of undisturbed kickback. So we set the plan, and that Saturday morning I first swung by the dorms to pick up the other guys and our snacks, then we all drove out to the mountain lake. On the way, we chatted in the car, stoked about the upcoming swim and munchies. About an hour and a half later, we arrived at the lake. Just like I remembered, it was surrounded by woods, with aquamarine water and not a soul around. We spread out a picnic blanket on the grassy shore, and after lunch, couldn't wait to jump in the refreshing water. The icy lake was exhilarating as we horsed around with water fights. I swam farther out, gradually leaving the others behind. When I reached the center of the lake, everything was perfectly still and quiet except for the sound of my own breathing. That's when I felt something coil around my left calf and tug me underwater. I looked down in horror to see a thick, black object wrapped tightly around my leg. I immediately realized it was a huge snake. It was maybe 6 feet long, with slick, shiny black skin, leisurely swimming below while clamped onto my leg. I freaked out instantly, with goosebumps down my spine, because I knew it could likely be a venomous water moccasin. I thrashed my legs violently trying to shake it off, but it was useless. This snake had incredible strength, squeezing me relentlessly, coiling even tighter. I felt its slippery, icy body constricting harder around my leg, totally immobilizing me. Help! I flailed my arms underwater and cried out, but no one was around. My friends were way off swimming near the shoreline. I realized I was in grave danger, and this vicious snake could easily drag me underwater to drown. Mustering every ounce of might, I kicked with all my strength, finally managing to break free of its grasp after struggle, as it let go and disappeared into the depths. I swiftly swam for shore, my heart pounding. Back on land, my legs were still shaky as the other terrified guys came running over asking what happened. I said a water moccasin had wrapped around my calf and scared the living daylights out of me. We unanimously decided to pack up and get the heck out of this creepy lake right away. As I helped pack the food, I kept replaying the scene in my head. It was so bone-chilling. If I hadn't fought with everything I had, I could have been pulled under and died. Driving back, I couldn't help but feel grateful to have narrowly escaped the clutches of death. I also reminded myself that life is not to be taken for granted. We should cherish every moment we have. I'll never swim alone in the deep areas of a remote lake again. I warned my buddies too that there are still unknown dangers in the world around us. When you're out and about, you can't be too cautious. I'm the kind of person who goes to the gym regularly. Every weekend, I like to drive to a lake in the outskirts and enjoy a swim in nature's pleasant ambience. I had been to this particular lake many times. It was nestled among woods with few residents living nearby. I still remember it was a bright sunny Saturday morning. I drove to this remote lake and parked in an open space near the entrance. There was not a soul around the lake, and the surroundings were very quiet, with only the rustling sound of leaves. I went to the lakeshore, took off my t-shirt, and dipped into the cool water. I slowly swam back and forth a couple times, then climbed onto a big rock on the shore to rest. Just then, I vaguely heard some rustling sounds coming from the woods not far away. I pricked up my ears and listened carefully. The sounds were intermittent, like someone moving in the bushes. At first I didn't think much of it, assuming it could be small animals hunting. But after a while, I clearly heard a sound resembling branches snapping. This time the sound was noticeably louder. I looked all around, but still didn't see anyone. I was starting to feel a bit creeped out, but still calmly went back in the water to swim for a bit. Just then, I vaguely saw a dark shadow of a human figure flash by deep in the woods across the lake. I was startled and immediately swam back to shore with cold sweat on my back. I became more vigilant and looked all around. Just then, I saw a figure swaying in the bushes by the lakeshore not far away. I took a closer look and saw a shabbily dressed man slowly emerging from behind the trees. He was rather short, wearing dirty old clothes, with two messy strands of whiskers. My heart shuddered because there were hardly any residents around this lake, and very rarely did outsiders come by. This man looked like a homeless person, silently walking out from behind the trees, which was quite frightening. I tried to ignore him and got up to jump back in the water. But just then, I felt him staring at me with a bizarre look in his eyes. I didn't dare look at him and hurriedly walked towards the swimming area with my head down. I swam for a bit trying to stay calm, hoping the man would leave. But when I climbed ashore to rest again, I realized he was still standing there in the same spot under the tree shade, staring fixedly at me as if keeping watch on me. A chill came over me as I instinctively felt something was off. So much time had passed, he should have left, but he just stood there gawking straight at me, motionless, apparently waiting for something. I suppressed my unease, pretending everything was normal while packing up to leave. As I stood up, I inadvertently glanced at him, and saw his mouth corners curl up into a creepy grin as he nodded at me. I was scared to death, instantly breaking out in cold sweat on my back. I quickly put on my t-shirt and shorts, grabbed my bag and ran towards the parking lot. I felt his gaze clinging onto me the whole way, which terrified me immensely. Once in the car, I still couldn't help looking back, and saw the man walking slowly towards the parking lot, getting closer and closer to me. I started the car and drove off, and from the rearview mirror I could see his lone figure following unhurriedly behind my car. I sped all the way home, my heart pounding, with the image of the man's sinister expression and bizarre smile flashing through my mind. I was even afraid he would chase me back home, so after driving several miles I took a different route back. All the way I kept checking the rearview mirror, terrified that he might suddenly appear. After this incident, I was in turmoil the entire weekend, puzzling again and again over the man's motives, but unable to figure it out no matter what. I even wondered if I was hallucinating to have seen such a bizarre person. But I definitely did feel that spine-chilling gaze. Now whenever I think back on it, I still feel lingering fear. I don't dare to go swimming alone at that remote suburban lake ever again, no matter how peaceful and beautiful it is. I'm also warning myself that I can't let my guard down, because there are just too many unknown dangers lurking in this world.